and welcome to the first painting stream that I've done ever of many more games. Now, unfortunately, my camera doesn't seem to be particularly focusing in too much on this, but I just wanted to. This is my sort of first little stream I've done painting wise. I thought I'd just paint and have it on my channel, so maybe you possibly can see what I'm doing. I am an avid collector of the Stormcast. I like the Stormcast very, very much. And I have recently just bought the Soul Wars box set with a whole new load of stuff. So what I'm doing now is I'm finishing off a project of mine that I've been working on forever, which is my Lord Relictor for my Celestial Vindicators, and he is, as you can see, I've got the fancy painting stand here, and what I'm doing now at the moment is I'm just trying to get his sort of his reliquary stuff done. He's supposed to have a big staff that he holds in his hand. I'm sorry, the camera seems to keep changing its focus, but hopefully I won't keep losing it here. But you see, he's supposed to hold this. Help! He's supposed to hold this in his hand like this, and that's attached to there. And the whole idea is to kind of try and get that. It's kind of hard to show you, but it's sort of like that. He holds a staff. Very nicely detailed. He carries a skeleton around with him, a giant skeleton, and sort of on the other side, it's got some really cool scroll work and detail work there. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be continuing to paint this. I don't know how maybe to change this to get better light, because it's not picking up the light particularly well. That might be the best way to do it. It's having a little bit of difficulty actually focusing on things at the moment. But anyway, so what I'll be doing is I'll be painting this today and just inanely chattering while I do so, I suppose. So, oh, jeez. So you may have noticed that this is half done. The top half is painted. I've painted at least the second layer color. I need to get the third fine detail layer. Careful! Twisted shadows, careful, you nearly knocked everything over. Anyway,
I'll try and get to the cat.
Okay, alright, careful because my water was spilling then. So what you can see is I've kind of done the top half and it's painted. The other half is almost completely unpainted. And the reason I've done that is because I am a numpty. And I wanted to kind of get this done a bit at a time. So what I've done is I've kind of painted this bit here and painted the back. This is the very detailed stuff, and I want to get this. Loki! Sorry, our devil cat is very, very hyperactive at the moment, attacking the sofa. He may have a timeout soon if he doesn't learn the way he stop leaving our furniture alone. Start leaving our furniture alone, more like. Anyway, so I'm going to be painting this because it's very detailed. I'm just going to finish off the details here. I'm then going to seal this up with some purity seal. And then I'm going to paint this half here, which has far less detail on it. It shouldn't take me half as much time. So that's basically what I'm going to do today. And I really desperately want to get this guy finished off. So, excuse me, I just need to quickly do this. Now I'm using, you may notice this thing here in the background. This is my makeshift homemade wet palette that I use. Love it because it keeps the paint moist, it keeps it from drying out. Very simple to make. All you need is a cardboard, sort of a little plastic box like this. You need a bit of tissue paper, put it down the bottom, and then get some of this baking paper that you can get from any supermarket. Basically, this costs you nothing to make. It costs you about maybe about $3 or something to make, and then you can keep using it over and over again because this is the majority of the cost, the plastic container. And I know people use everlasting ones and everything, but you can see it keeps it wet, it keeps it moist and cool, particularly at the moment in summer where it's very warm and paint dries very, very quickly as it's designed to do. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing some edge highlighting. So I've done the main colors. I've got the turquoise color of the Celestial Vindicator's Stormhost Chamber, which is my Stormhost Chamber, sort of tilt this a bit more, so maybe possibly I can get a bit more done here. I apologize if nothing is in 100% detail, I am basically just doing the very edge. I'm using a Temple Guard blue over my Sotek green to give myself a nice turquoisey finish to my army's armor. Now I'm a bit my style is not perhaps the best when it comes to Celestial Vindicators. They are supposed to be a bit more grim and dark, but I don't know. I find I don't really like painting particularly grim, dark things, which is quite strange considering my other army is Nighthawns, which you may see a few pictures of my Instagram feed. And
how can people follow you on Instagram?
well, it's many more games, many underscore more underscore games, and I have been I haven't got quite enough followers on Twitch or Instagram to be considered any sort of authority. But I've been painting my Nighthawns using the Tyler Mengel method. If you want to know what that is, go on the Warhammer community site, and Tyler Mengel, who is a contributor to that site, you can also find him on his own. He's got his own blog, which is Mengel Miniatures, and he's got a sort of painting blog which he does on Twitter and on Twitch sometimes. Sorry, not Twitch. On other platforms. I shouldn't probably be plugging other platforms while I'm on Twitch. But and yeah, if you go on there, he basically gives you a step-by-step method on how he created his painting scheme. It's quite interesting. He's using a technical paint, which you shouldn't really use in great detail because it's in great amounts, because technical paint is a bit of a pain. It's meant for a very specific purpose, but he uses a technical paint to give a very ghostly finish to his lovely Nighthawn miniatures, which I'm very much a fan of. So I have tried to use the same sort of method. Maybe when I finish with this, maybe I'll show you an example. And yeah, it's a very interesting method. It's very, very well done. It makes them very pale and ghostly. Now, that being said, Games Workshop has recently just come out with 2 new technical paints, which are specifically designed for giving a ghostly effect, which is not what the original paint, which is I can never pronounce it, Nickel Oxide. It's over there by you, Just Shadows, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, I think it's that one. Something oxide. Nihilak oxide. Yeah. Okay. Basically, it's meant to make sort of brass or copper oxidation effect on metal. So bronze weapons, brass weapons. It gives that sort of lovely oxidized green tinge that you see from a lot of copper-based products. And I've used it before on my Flesh Eater Quartz force, which is sort of an army based on vampires who've deluded themselves into thinking they're kings and knights. And so while they think that they are beautiful and glamorous, they're actually disgusting, horrible creatures, ghouls, and eat human flesh, cannibals, all that sort of stuff. I love that thing. Could you mind passing me the tissue quickly?
Of course.
Thank you very much, so I can do my...
Would you like some music on?
If you want some music on, that's fine. I don't mind. Yeah, go ahead.
Any preference?
No, not at all. You can use your usual playlist. If you like this music, you can go on Twisted Shadows Twitch channel and watch her do her painting stream as well. She's got some past streams up recently in the last couple of days, so you can go on there and check them out. As for me, this is my first stream I've done on Twitch for painting. I've done some I've done some work on I've done some computer games streaming, and I've got a YouTube channel which this will also be put up on afterwards. Anyway, so yeah, I'm currently painting my Stormcast, and my Nighthawns is a celebration of the new Age of Sigmar, which I'm very much a fan of and really want to get into. Kind of been a bit lax on my Age of Sigmar recently, and I'm kind of using this as an opportunity to get back into the hobby. I have, of course, got the new Soul Wars box set, as I mentioned earlier, so I've got a whole load of Stormcast in there to deal with.
Never ends!
Well, I'm really excited because this model I'm currently painting was previously like the only magical support I had in my army, and he's not even a mage. He doesn't even have magic like a mage does, and he's basically a priest. He uses prayers, which have their own strengths in Age of Sigmar, because prayers can't be dispelled like spells can. You can't exactly jump in the way of a prayer to a god and say, no, it's not real. You don't exist. Therefore, your power is negligible. Yeah, so the colours that I've chosen to go for these are Celestial Vindicators. Well, basically, let me just walk you a little bit through what I'm actually painting at the moment. This is a Stormcast Eternal. This is a Lord Relictor that you can see in the background here. And Stormcasts are basically like heroes from another age, and they were snatched up before their death by the god Sigmar. Basically, he saw their heroism and he realized he was going to need these great heroes to fight against the bad guys in Age of Sigmar. Well, there's a lot of bad guys, but the ultimate bad guys, the Chaos Gods. And he snatches them all up from all over the different realms in Age of Sigmar. Now, if you don't know Age of Sigmar, they're basically... Age of Sigmar, can you turn it down a tiny bit? Age of Sigmar is... the world of Age of Sigmar is split up into different realms called the Mortal Realms, and these are 8 different realms of magic. And Sigmar is the storm god. He's basically like Zeus. He's like Zeus from Greek mythology, although I'm pretty sure GW wouldn't thank me for saying that. They like to keep their intellectual property theirs. I'll probably start an international incident here where the Greek government sues them for using their gods for their own gain. Then again, if they could do that, then Disney would be in serious trouble. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit here, but...
Yeah, that's what Twitch is for, baby.
Thanks, Twisted. But yeah, so these guys are my Stormcast. They're basically like Grecian demigods, heroes of myth and magic, and they are sent back after a couple of hundred years. They are prepared and they're ready to fight. And Sigmar basically goes, I'm not going to send these guys in to fight until I'm sure that I have a good chance of winning. And so that's what he does. He holds on to them, and then he sends them. He throws them into the realms on lightning bolts. He lets them descend through lightning bolts, and then they are stuck there. They can't go back the same way, so they have to basically fight their way through the entirety of the enemy forces until they end up through several battles establishing a number of different cities. And the Stormcast that I'm currently painting is a Lord Relictor, and he is responsible for sort of the spiritual well-being of his charges. He's kind of like I suppose you call him like almost like a chaplain or a priest. They're not of course they're priests, but in Age of Sigmar, the gods are actual tangible figures who walk the battlefields, and his sort of role is to make sure people are performing the job they're supposed to be doing and protecting their souls. And my guys, as you can see, I painted them in a quite a strong turquoisey green color, a sort of sea green color, and that's because my guys belong to a different specific chamber. All the Stormcast are broken up into different chambers. And this chamber I have here, there's a number of chambers. There's the Hallowed Knights, Hammers of Sigmar, Anvils of Heldenhammer, but my guys are the Celestial Vindicators. And the reason I like their background, I like their color scheme more than anything. And when I saw their color scheme, I was like, yes, I want that. I want to paint some sort of turquoisey green with gold and bone. And I thought they're really striking on the battlefield. And they do. And it really suits my color palette because I like clear-cut, sort of very nice, bright colors if I can do it. And beforehand, I painted a few armies that didn't really have that color palette. I didn't feel like, which is ridiculous because I can paint them however I want. I bought the miniatures. I can paint them in any style that I please. Sorry, I know this is not showing you the best, but I'm in quite a delicate stage at the moment. So.
Looks good on camera.
So the Yeah, so basically this is my Celestial Vindicators. They come from a chamber where everybody who died before they or who were before they were saved by Sigmar basically prayed to Sigmar to give them one more chance to strike back at the Chaos Gods, to basically in their fury to attack, to give them strength for one more blow against the Chaos Gods. And Sigmar heard their prayers, and all those who are sort of wrath incarnate, their furious justice became part of the Celestial Vindicators chamber. And the Celestial Vindicators are they are the angry Stormcast, which I like. They are righteous fury, they are thunder and lightning. So they're kind of like the counterpart to Khorne. They're like the good counterpart to Khorne, which is the Chaos God of Slaughter, which I kind of like. I like that. I also like their background. That they get more and more messed up every time they die. Oh, you have something to point out if you don't actually follow Age of Sigmar. As the Stormcast are basically immortal warriors. When they die, they get transported back to Azerheim, which is the realm of Sigmar. They get transported back in a blast of lightning. But the problem is with that is that when Sigmar was trying to create his armies, as we've sort of learned over time, as the new Warhammer mythos has developed, Sigmar kind of rushed the process by which he made the Stormcast. He realized that he needed his armies quickly, and he kind of rushed the process, and in doing so, he used an imperfect method of resurrection. And the problem with that is every time a Stormcast dies, he loses a piece of his original personality, and it gets replaced by, well, the Sigmar's magic kind of fills the gaps. So when they die, they might lose the name of they might lose their name, who they used to be. They might lose the name of their loved ones. They might forget a skill. They might forget friends. They might forget Stormcast that they previously knew. They might even forget those people that they fought alongside years ago before they were resurrected. And the whole sort of thing behind this is that the Stormcast are now trying to search for a way to fix this, because every time they die and they come back and they lose a piece of themselves, they become less and less human. And that's kind of a problem, because they're kind of meant to be protecting humans. And the thing is, when you don't understand humans, when you don't have empathy, when you don't understand, not that you don't understand the difference between right and wrong, but you don't understand the gradation between right and wrong. You don't understand like what's a small crime and what's a big crime. The Stormcast, unfortunately, some of them have become a little bit feared and a little bit not hated, but they were, people, they've sort of like, even the good guys have rioted against them and fought against them because of their uncompromising nature. The Celestial Vindicators are like the worst for that. In the new fluff that was released last week, we kind of learned a bit more about them, and we learned that they used to have a city, well, they do have a city called Vindicarum, which they set up in the Mortal Realms, and the city was all sort of fine until the Stormcast decided that but crimes should be punishable by death, because if you're committing a crime, then you're fighting against the will of Sigmar, which is to live in ordered peace. So it's kind of weird. They started off as these really strong good guys, and they become more and more sort of like dystopian in the way they run themselves. I mean, that's but not quibbling here. I mean, the Stormcast are the only reason that Chaos has been beaten back, and that these cities even exist. Without them, without the Stormcast, these cities would not have even come to being. But the problem with it is humans don't really remember very long time, and of course,
Well, Was that for the lifespan?
Well, because the Stormcast live forever. Yeah, and the humans, they have their normal lifespan. And so when they see a Stormcast as sort of one of these immortal warriors, it's, what becomes awe suddenly becomes fear of the different. And the Stormcast, of course, it's not helped that Tzeentch is messing around there as well. Tzeentch is the chaos god of sort of trickery and deceit and magic.
He's the Loki of AOS.
Yeah, he's the Loki of AOS, and he
Or she? Is it
it's a he. Technically, it's a he. Tzeentch is a he. Well, Tzeentch is an amorphous blob of magic, really. That's what he is. But technically, he's always thought of as a he. Yeah, he sort of incites rebellion and causes problems because he takes advantage of everything. Basically, in Vindicarum, the Stormcast decided that this is, thievery is against the law, and if you commit the crime, then you'll be executed. And Tzeentch sees this, and he's like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's get my cultists to start a riot." They start a riot. The Celestial Vindicators see this as further evidence of corruption. And then they slaughter 3/4 of the population of the city, and the rest of the city become like these fanatics who are sort of fearful of the Stormcast, but also super zealous in professing that they really do love Sigmar. Please don't kill us. And yeah, it's kind of cool because when I first started Celestial Vindicators, they were much more empathetic towards humans. But as time's gone by, they become less and less empathetic and more furious. Now, my particular Stormcast, they're not exactly good guys, but they're not ones that have been stationed to a city. The story behind my Stormcast that they're always out, sort of like forward bastion people fighting, so they don't really have to deal with normal humans too much. Any humans that they do deal with are not on a regular basis. They tend to focus on just Stormcast. That being said, they have sort of the allies in the human realms, and they have elves and dwarves that they work with, but not very much because they prefer to work by themselves. Also, I've kind of broken with the traditional painting style, and the painting style should be sort of this sort of teal color combined with white, and I've gone for bone instead of white because I find white a pain to paint, and since I'm already painting white for my Nighthawks, I don't really want to paint any more white than I have to, which you may, if you watch any of Twisted Shadows streams, you will hear me screaming in frustration over and over again, as I have to fix issues and repaint certain parts of it because it's white. It's white, and I hate painting white. Is this working out? Okay, yes. I've got some blobs of different colours that I need to sort out because I've made a few little messes and mistakes, but nothing that can't be fixed with just a little dab of paint.
It's so good to see you painting that again.
Yeah, I know, it's been ages. I kind of started painting, I think, last summer, and then stopped. And I don't really know why. I kind of went through a dry spell painting.
You're like me, but not as often. Not as
frequent. New job, moved to a new country, everything. It was quite a lot of stuff to do. And then I kind of got on a 40k kick for a little while, because 40k was just out, the new edition. And I'm going to say, people who say Age of Sigmar doesn't have a storyline to it are dead wrong, and they need to actually read some of the material before they start making claims like that. But I will admit that it does not have the level of material that the previous edition of Warhammer had. Now,
well, then that's probably because it hasn't been out for so long.
Well, it's only been out for a few years. I mean, Warhammer Fantasy Battles, when it was out, it took, 10 years before they even started putting material out? I remember I bought the Godrix and Felix novels, which are one of the first books that Black Library brought out by William King. And I thoroughly enjoyed those. They were really, really good, but they were, it was a new concept. Having that level of information was brand new. And what they're doing now is, I think one of their primary guys who's doing it is Josh Reynolds, who is an amazing author, really good. It's him. There's a guy called Nick Horth. I think if I've got that wrong, I apologize, and I'll put it in the thing. But he wrote The City of Secrets, which was really good for building up what a city looks like in the Mortal Realms. There's the Call of Archeon, which I think that was a collection of writers who wrote that, but that was really cool. That was about 4 different Chaos Lords, all vying for Archeon's approval. And so they're all trying to get him to sort of like notice them and make him a member of their court. And that was really cool. And then there were the Realmgate Wars novels, which are really just tied into the narrative stories, the narrative books that were coming out for the game. But they were still very good and still very well written. There were the ones which came out for different armies, like the Sylvaneth and the Fire Slayers had their own little anthology of books. There was the Black Rift books, which were created. There was the there are quite a few. There were more books in the first year of Age of Sigmar than there were for the first like 5 years of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and at least. And so I'm very pleased with where the lore is in Age of Sigmar at the moment. But that being said, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that being said, 40k has some of the most fun, grim, dark, nasty lore that there is. The fluff of 40k is so well developed, but changing. And I have to admit that I find it hard to go back, since they brought back Gilliman and they changed the edition of 40k to, I kind of like been hoping for more stories that push the story forward, and they've been sort of like hedging their bets there. Like for a year they've been writing novels about, you know, all the different people around when the events happened, but not much really has developed narratively, at least not since. But I understand why, because they're still bringing out all the codexes, which are the army books. And since those aren't done yet, they can't really take the narrative forward until they have written sort of what's happened for all the races. But still, it's a bit annoying. You kind of sitting there going, I want my faction to have more time. I want more airtime for my faction. More Imperial Knights novels. I have to say though, we have been quite lucky in that respect. We've had 2 Imperial Knights novels in like a year and a half, so that's been pretty good. I mean, the Tower have been out for how many years, and they've still only got like 3 novels, which annoys me because the Tower are much more interesting than some of the Imperial Guard novels that came out. Anyway, anyway, sorry, Celestial Vindicators. Gone on a tangent here. But yeah, Celestial Vindicators, they oh no, I've got some teal on the gold. That's okay. I'm going to go over that bit anyway, so that's alright. I haven't made a mistake there.
That's my quote forever.
What? I'm going to go over that bit, so it's okay.
That's why I do so many times. I'm like, I'll be careful. I won't go over that. Oh, damn it! I've gone over that. Okay, I'll fix it. It's okay.
Well, you remember my screams of fury yesterday when I got a bit of brown on the white skeleton.
Oh, drat. Oh, sod it. I'm just going to paint it all that one colour and then fix it later.
Well, I can't do that. It actually gives me like the twitches when I do that, and so I can't do that, which is not fair.
Why do you think it makes life easier? It makes it harder. Because you've ended up painting it that colour.
Anyway. Twisted Shadows thinking she's so much better than me.
No.
Because she's not affected in the same way. Look at me. I'm able to continue painting without having to go back and fix every mistake before I fix it again. Before I paint over it, I have to fix the mistake and then paint over it. It's the problem with me. I'm like, no, it must be fixed, and then I will just paint over it, so it doesn't matter about I spent half an hour fixing it. I'm really not happy with what I'm doing at the moment, because I should not be holding the model like this. Because what I'm going to be doing is every time my fingers go on here, I am going to be pulling paint off, which I don't want to be doing. But
pulling paint off?
Yeah, I'm trying to hold it by the handle as much as I can, but basically, if I keep touching it, the paint will start flaking off because I haven't sealed it.
My paint never seems to flake.
Well, you tend to hold it by something. So when you're doing like really fine layer detail on some parts, that stuff just comes off because it's just a thin layer of thin pigment paint.
Oh, okay.
It's not very much there. We've got some rap on.
I've put on uncopyrighted music.
Fair enough.
So
I won't lose my sound. Yay!
So hopefully you won't get, because I get a lot of like complaint copyrights, and I'm like, I'm using it in fair use. I'm using it in fair use. Put my address in. I'm using it in fair use. Put my address in. And so it's just been a nightmare. So I'm trying to behave with my music anyway. I don't want you getting in trouble, babe.
Oh, fair enough. Thank you very much. She was going to get me into trouble. Anyway.
I was thinking about it. But I don't get it though, because like you can get Last FM on Twitch, but you can use it through like Spotify, I think. So I don't really get how and what music is okay and what isn't for Twitch. I don't get it.
It's a bit iffy, isn't it? Because it's public. It's a public viewing platform. It also depends upon the country that you're currently in. Yeah. Like if you were in Germany and you started to play this, well, no, if you were in Germany and you were playing music belonging to someone else, you would have all your sound taken off.
It would be gone.
Yeah, you would. No, your picture would still be there, but they would take all your sound off. Yeah. Which means, well, the sound. So you'd lose all your sound.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it depends where you are in the world. Really, it depends what their restrictions are. It's really hellish because when you're in Germany and you want to watch like music videos on YouTube, you can't because it's against copyright law.
I wonder how people get the rights, other than having to ask every single artist and finding the way to contact.
I have no clue. Probably get a local artist or someone who isn't like a copyrighted artist on the network. I'm guessing that you may have to file something with YouTube saying I have permission.
Prime and pay for it.
Well, even then you can't use it because you'd still be putting your music onto a public platform.
Even Spotify?
Yep.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Because you're not allowed to, because it's a streaming service, so you're not allowed to benefit in any way by it. And
you're paying for it.
Well, yeah, but you're still benefiting from it. You're still using it, like using it as a soundtrack or something. So it's like a movie using a soundtrack without paying for it. So it's the same sort of thing. If I'm making this up and it doesn't sound like a real rule to you, please tell me. But just I'm reasoning. I'm using reason here to try and understand it myself. So if I'm making a mistake and you're saying he's talking a load of guff, no such law exists. This person doesn't know what he's talking about. It's not through ignorance. It's just reasoning. And if I'm wrong, tell me, please. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm having a pretty good time. I tell you what, this has been very intimidating. Getting back into painting this, I've had this kind of block for this miniature because one, you can only get it in a specific box set. So if you mess it up,
you are screwed.
Well, you have to buy another box set because they've never brought it out as an individual model, which is a bit annoying because it's like one which makes it into every army. So you think that they would have made they made a separate Lord Celestin, they made all sorts of stuff, and they never made a Lord Relictor as a separate model. Doesn't mean you can't get it on eBay or anything, but particularly now that they've changed the box set, so I'm pretty sure that this, they're going to be bringing out a new box set where you can get the Lord Relictor separately. But strange they didn't, because they brought out, the guy that I have on my Dracov, my Lord Celestin on Dracov, they brought him out separately as Vander's Hammer, and you could buy him separately. They brought your Khorne Lord with the dog, with the Chaos Fleshhound, out separately as well. Korg was cool. Brought him out separately. So I don't understand the whole reticence to bring out a Lord Relictor separately. Now, my only thing I could think of is that the Relictors are part of a specific chamber, and they haven't brought that chamber out yet.
That could be it.
Yeah, because we didn't have any magic users for God knows how long, 2 years, 3 years now, because all the magic users belong to the Sacrosanct Chamber, and they've only just brought them out. Now there's a few other chambers, there's 3 more chambers that haven't yet been released, and so I'm assuming that one of those chambers is where the priests are, the Relictors are.
How's your laptop battery?
It's about halfway.
Oh, that's
I'll probably get another half an hour out of it. Don't want to make my first stream too long anyway. I'm probably boring a lot of people
You are not
at the
boring.
moment. I'm not.
You
Well,
are
I'm
full
not.
of information.
I'm not painting a new model or anything at the moment, so it's kind of people.
No, but your painting is beautiful.
Well, I can't really see it because I've got a blurry thing. But yes,
Do you
I'm
think you'll
painting
use my
these.
camera in future?
Maybe I can't really focus it.
That's a shame.
I'll try it, but I'll try yours next. But
Yeah, just test it out. See what you prefer then.
pretty sure I've just taken all this off again. I'm gonna have to seal this up in a minute just to make sure it doesn't come off anymore.
How will you seal it? With Lamy medium?
Yeah, and that should stop it from coming off. Fortunately, it dulls down the colour, but in fact that's not too bad because I was a bit liberal with the washes, and my wash tends to make things look a bit shiny. So if I do a bit of Lamy and medium, it will get rid of that shine. It also creates a nice little sealant layer, which will protect my model a bit, at least until I get some purity seal on it, which is a type of varnish. Okay, is that the green pretty much done? Did I get all the little bits? I think. No, I missed one. I hate you, little bits. Nah, I love you. That's what makes the model so good, all the little details.
It's going to look so good, baby.
But when he's finally done, he'll hopefully look. Yeah, hopefully he'll look good. Luckily, I'm kind of doing edge highlighting at the moment. What I need to do is I need to do a few bits and pieces, hopefully not too much more. Luckily, edge highlighting is one of the quickest layers to do. Gonna need my screaming skull, I think, at some point. Not quite yet. I need to just double check and make sure there's no mistakes going on. If I get all the detail. Sorry, just thinking if I got all the detail. Can't see any issues. They could crop up later. Let's think. Alright, so now I need to sort out purple, the gold, the red, the bone. Kind of want to get one side done first, and I can seal it and turn over and do the other side. We'll see. Luckily, I've had a lot of experience recently painting undead, so this is actually kind of like a step through. What I want to paint next, as you can see over here, is I've got a Stormcast with a giant hammer. He's my Retributor. He's my Liberator Prime, so I want him painted. I know he doesn't look particularly flashy because I don't have one of the shoulder pads. I needed one of the lion shoulder pads, but I don't know why I didn't paint him up with a lion shoulder pad. I'm pretty sure I had an extra one somewhere, but he's my Liberator Prime because I want him to have a great hammer because Liberator Primes get an extra attack, and so if I give him a good heavy hammer, he's the one that gets, so he gets 3 attacks instead of 2. So I've given him the extra hammer, and then I've got over here I've got some more Liberators and a Liberator Prime here. Oh, I remember. Yeah, he's the one that got the fancy schmancy shoulder pad. So he's got the Liberator shoulder pad there, and I've got 4 Liberators with swords instead of hammers. I'm a bit annoyed about that because the hammers have a bit more killy quality, I find. And I originally they had hammers, but I wanted to make them look a bit different than the other unit because there's a bit of repeating in the models. There's a bit of sort of repeating in the casting. And secondly, because I'm a bit worried about that a bit. I have to paint something on there to make sure, because I think there's a fingerprint on there. I'm going to have to try and repaint that a bit to make sure it's like incorporating a design or something. Maybe some sort of spiral mark or something. But I'm going to paint them up in the same color scheme so that they're done. Then that's my 2 battle line units plus a unit of Judicators, which are my bow-armed men. And then I'm going to start sort of painting a little bit from the box, my new box set, and then something from my old set, new, old, and build it up that way. Because I still have 2 units of paladins I need to paint for that army as well. And a few characters I need to paint up as well.
That's all the bone done.
You done all the bone?
Yep.
Great. I'm going to just twist you around so you can see Twisted Shadows over here. Shadow's doing her painting. She's over here. She's got her... I'm going to detach you. Here we go. Going for a fly. She's painting some hex wraiths. Cool. Making everybody seasick. Trying to figure out how to get it in camera. There you go. As you can see, it's sort of like a Grim Reaper. Can you twist it? Can you turn it around, darling? No, stay where it was. There we go. So you can see it's got the scythe and the skeletal horse and everything. It's pretty cool. Twisted Shadows, twisting back over here. Okay, so that's done. So I need to do some little bits at a time, really. Let's do it a bit at a time. That's always the best way to do it. Indubitably. So that one is still, I think, in the mid layer. That's my GC. I just opened a new one. Darn it. Oh well, it's there. It's only barely open. It's my Xerxes purple. Is this a new one or an old one? I don't think it's a new one. I tend to collect the same paint over and over again because I'm so worried about running out. So I've got like 4 or 5 of the same one. I almost ran out of the paint I really do. I need to pick up another one of a particular paint because I almost ran out and I'm a bit upset about that because it shows my lack of forethought, my lack of planning. That's a bit of purple. That's royal purple. I've gone for sort of I've tried to go for sort of pseudo-romantic. It's not real romantic because of course they didn't use these colour schemes the way I'm doing it now, but I'm using purple only for the officers, and line troops get red. So what's red on sort of like a basic trooper is purple on their sergeant and on their captains. Trying to sort of distinguish. It helps me when I'm playing the game because it helps me distinguish the leaders from the other groups. It's a bit like what Twisted Shadows has done. If she shows you her Chaos Army at some point, you'll always see that her champions and special characters and units have a very distinct look to them. It helps you remember where they are. Yeah. Well, if some have gold, you've done them in silver. You know, if the line troopers are silver, then the main troopers are gold. Then your thingy troopers are gold. Maybe that's why I got the new one. This is the dead Gene Stealer purple. I keep putting them back in. I need to remove them so I actually know how many paints I've got. I'm sure if I took like the dead ones out of there, I'd have half the paints I currently have over there. Maybe not half, but you know what I mean. I definitely have a smaller stock. Okay, so I'm going to need a bit of mix a bit of colour here a little bit because I need it not to be too bright. If it's too bright, the gradient won't look right. So now I'm edge highlighting. All that means is I'm just going to the very edges of the model and just very carefully trying to draw a line of the lighter colour on that model, to represent where the light is catching the model. And I'm just, for some reason, he's got a little pouch hanging from his reliquary, so I'm painting the pouch in sort of a purple cloth colour, mainly because I didn't want to paint it in black or a boring colour. So just trying to get the folds of the cloth highlighted. Now, unfortunately, I can't see if anybody's online. I don't think anybody's online at the moment.
It's just me.
Just you at the moment.
But well, you did have one follower. You did have one
viewer. Thank you, whoever you were.
For a very short time. I have put you on Discord.
Sounds like sounds like my sort of viewing track record. He saw me for 6 minutes out of the hour I talked. But.
Well, I said painting. I didn't specify that it was AOS, so that was. So
yeah, I lost all the 40k viewers when they came on painting. You painting age of. Well, I won't say it because it is a PG channel, but there is a rude expletive people use for this game who don't play the game and therefore seem to think they know everything about it. I call them Dakarites. Anyway, yeah, because they're all about the Daka and not about anything else. Yeah, so this is the thing. Anyway, now I need to use a brighter colour purple, just for a very, very basic highlight here. Now, I am not, and I am not pretending to be a Golden Demon level painter.
Is that a rank?
Yeah, that's like one of the best painters in the thing. Like either Golden Demon or Crystal Brush, who I think people tend to think Crystal Brush are a higher rank because Crystal Brush is completely sort of fan run. It's run at Adepticon, whereas Golden Demon is run by GW.
Oh, I see.
So, and I'm not saying that makes it any less fair, because they do have their own sort of like system of doing things, but I think people tend to think Crystal Brush is better because people aren't stuck on Games Workshop models, so they can paint any model they want for Crystal Brush.
That's cool.
Ironically, though, however, I have a feeling that GW models tend to do some of the best. GW models are just some of the best quality models out there. You can't deny that. Even if you don't like GW, you probably and you think, oh, they're overpriced or they're not. You know, their variety isn't as much.
Than they have been in the past.
Yeah, well,
the starter box sets are generally quite decent.
Start collecting box sets. If you want to start collecting GW games, they have just made it so easy to get into the hobby right now. Start collecting box set. Cost you about $50, €50, 60 euros. It's not cheap, but the hobby's not a cheap hobby. But you buy that box set and you've got enough to get playing with, unless you're playing like tournaments, in which case don't even try, otherwise I'll laugh at you. I'm not being mean about tournament players. One of my best friends out here in the Czech Republic is a tournament player, and we have actually done a video on YouTube talking about how tournament players approach games and how that compares to how people like me, who is a narrative player or a hobby hero who just likes painting, approaches the game. And we did a really nice talk about that, and it's really interesting to see sort of the different perspectives when it comes to the hobby. Some people are both. You can be a hobby hero and a tournament player. There's no reason you can't be. But I do find that people tend to fall into those two camps more often than not. More leaning to one direction than the other. Thank you very much for hosting me, Twisted.
You're welcome, baby.
I'm a bit cheating because I've got my own private cheerleader. Here. Can you see...
Screaming Skull is here.
No, I need Liberator Gold. Liberator Gold, there we go. This is going to be very mixed. This is going to be very unmixed. It's going to be sort of bluish. It's orange on the inside. Problem is, when you're in a hot country, or when you're in a country where it's been hot, you know, or you leave the paints for too long, they tend to get a bit... not just congealed, but sometimes... I'm sorry, I need to bang this a few times. Hold on for a second, darling. I need to bang.
That's okay,
they get a bit sort of settled and the pigments separate, and so you have to really shake them hard to mix them up. Not
you
even
need
close.
One of those medical test tubes.
What? Yeah, DNA things. Yeah, I may need to stick a brush in there and brush around. No, I think it's starting to mix. I think maybe a bit more. I'ma shake the maraca, baby, shake the maraca. This is my, if you could see, I could do the sort of a music video to this with sort of to the mask. Chicka boom, chicka boom, boom, chicka boom, boom, chicka boom. He's a very modest guy, though he's the hottest guy in Warhammer, Anyway.
I was getting into that then, and then you stopped.
Anyway, so, I think we've got this lovely sort of platinum gold colour now ready to go. I've already done. I keep forgetting that I've done all the layers. Really, I'm just doing the final highlight on these. Um,
So
yeah,
so remind people, what got you into AOS?
AOS or Warhammer?
Both.
Well, Warhammer was a product of my best friend Paul's father getting into Warhammer, and my friend Paul and I, when we were kids, we used to watch him paint and not be able to touch anything.
Must be
And
really
then
hard
he
to
got some stuff, and so I wanted some stuff, and I didn't understand how the game was played, so I got like just stuff I like the look of from different armies. And then someone told me, no, you've actually got to play an army. You've got to play a whole faction. I said, well, that wasn't part of the original agreement, but okay. So I played. I joined up because my best friend started painting. We didn't know how to play. I remember we didn't actually know how to play. We just made it up as we went along, very sort of D&D style, you know. But but then unfortunately, fortunately I had another good friend who was sort of more into 40k, and that was my friend Shake, and he was into it as well. He kind of sort of showed me the ropes with Warhammer and Warhammer 40k. But a lot of the guys in my local sort of scene were very tournament player guys. Didn't really like noobs getting involved in their hobby. Could be a little bit hostile sometimes, or just took pleasure in destroying someone who didn't know how to play the game very well. And it was really funny the first time I went back to the UK when someone was helpful, and I was like, oh, okay, this is new. Someone actually wants to talk to me about the hobby and not look at me like I don't know what I'm doing, which you don't know what you're doing. But this is a friendly hobby, and it's a very social hobby. It's all about sort of making friends and playing games together, just like board games or online video games, MMOs.
But there's always.
But you'll always have a few people who just don't really care. And that's kind of what happened, unfortunately. So I had to. I don't know. It wasn't a terrible experience, really. It's probably no worse than some other people have had, but it wasn't the best experience, of growing up the hobby. And so I kind of fell out of the hobby for a little while, and then I ended up getting back into it off and on over the years, and then when Age of Sigmar came out, which was a new version of Warhammer, which didn't have a rule book, which required a degree in physics to understand.
Which was after when you met me.
That was also after I met you, yes, and I was very critical of Age of Sigmar.
Oh my god!
I was incredibly critical.
Was one of the most people.
I wasn't burn my whole army and set it on fire on a barbecue like some people I saw on the internet. Haters just gotta, and to quote the great Taylor Swift, haters gotta hate. I wasn't like that, but I definitely was critical of it, and I was critical of it without ever playing it. And then I ended up buying models to paint. I bought models for my friends to paint, and we just tried out playing it, and it was a good game. And I enjoyed it.
Right, that's the wood done.
And I ended up getting back into a hobby that I'm really happy I did get back into, because otherwise I would have, I would have missed out on making some great friends and playing some good games. And yeah, I'm very, very pleased with the sort of where I am in the hobby situation right now. I need to get down to Friedrich Mystic, where they play to the local shop where they actually play Age of Sigmar. They don't really play them in this area where we live. I have to go to the next town over. Well, I don't have to. I could always set something up here myself, but most people go there to play because they've got tables and everything. And they seem to be less about tournaments and more about just pickup games, which is more my thing. But I remember, this is something that would never have happened with the old Age of Sigmar. When I was living in Madrid, we just walked into the local Games Workshop shop, and there was a kid there, and he had a new tree man. He just painted up a giant tree man, And I just happened because I was showing a guy I was showing the guy at the shop my Vindicators, my Celestial Vindicators. I was showing them off because you do, as you do, because you like people to look at your models when you're a modeler. And I was showing them off, and then this kid just finished his model, and I was like, "Hey, it's pretty cool." And he was like, "Thanks." And I was like, "Well, I wasn't talking in Spanish, and I was talking sort of pidgin Spanish at the time." Está bien. Oh, gracias. Oh, and um, and then I said, "Do you want to play a game?" He's like, "Oh, and I'm an army." And I was like, "That's all right. You got your tree man. I've got my character. Why don't we say best of 3?" And we played a short sort of duel match, which would never have been able to happen in the old Warhammer because it was too complicated.
Just to let you know, Room Fang Seal seems to have dried up completely.
Okay, use Stormhost Silver, but be careful, there's not a lot of it left.
I'm going to use Le Culture. Oh, it seems fine. I was going to say
Cool.
shake it like a Polaroid picture.
Shake, 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 shake it. Sorry, I'm just painting a gem at the moment. It's a little bit fiddly. Actually, everything on this part of the model is fiddly because it's just this. I'm on the very sort of like final stage of the model, so this is all a bit fiddly. That probably should be gold because it's the setting. Don't want to be. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. I need a bit of Stormhost. If you wouldn't mind passing it over.
Stormhost Gold.
Stormhost Silver. I've got it here. Stormhost Silver, which I'm running out of as well. I'm gonna have to do a paint restock at some point, which I hate because paints aren't cheap. They're not expensive, but they're definitely not super cheap in any way. So to stock up on my paints. If you shake me, I will chase you with a cheese grater.
Sorry.
I'm shaking the maraca. Come on. Ah, okay. There we go. I hate the silver. I hate it when it gets to the end because the pigment starts separating and it just isn't very good compared to when it first comes out of the bottle. Okay, so that is that part done. Feeling that is a a little bit there. That works. It's a bit macabre, really, this model, because he's, literally hulking around a skeleton with him, kind of cool. I do kind of wonder if Nagash sees that skeleton and then goes, "Rise, my pretty!" And suddenly he has to deal with this like skeleton reaching down out of his own reliquary, trying to pull him, stab him with the sword that he's sitting there holding, you know?
Stabby, stabby, stabby.
Exactly. Stab, 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 stab. I do kind of wonder about that sometimes. But then again, that's because I'm a narrative buff. I like narrative fluff. Okay, now I need to just put a little bit of that over that to stop it from being an issue. Get rid of the Loki hair, which has invaded my field of vision.
It gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere. It really does. That cat hair. It's me nightmares. Okay, so that I think. Mozzie. I think there's a Mozzie in here.
No, save me.
Oh, I'm not saving you because you're the one where he let it in when you went out for a cigarette.
No.
Don't you know me? It's already in here. It's not already in here. Hmm.
Nice music.
It's not bad.
It's not the greatest, but
There's definitely a Mozzie in here or something. Okay.
Oh, nothing.
Okay, so now I need to put a little bit of you on here. I'm doing now is applying just a tiny bit of Lamia Medium, which is fine. Basically, I'm just doing that to seal this part of the model. But it does mean, however, I'm going to be careful for the next 5 minutes not to touch it because it needs to dry. If I dry it, if I do dry it, then it will take a lovely fingerprint, and that will be indelibly just pushed into the. That's better. Just forever bonded to the plastic. I need a toothpick. Sorry, I've got a bit of a bubble of Lamia Medium forming. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. And I know Lamia Medium is not normally used this way, but I find it works quite nicely as a sealant. Not quite as good as Purity Seal, but it works. I find it works in a pinch while you're actually building the model itself.
Okay, so over those spots then.
That's better. Just wait for that to dry. Lamia Medium also dries nice and fast, but all it does is just makes the next layer go on smoother. If you're going to put a smooth layer on it, basically gets rid of any bumps and gives you a nice clean little plastic film to paint over. My main issue is I completely messed up the gold here. It's rubbed a bit while I was touching it, missing bits. Luckily, I'm planning on going over it anyway. So you to use the kitten mantra. You're going over it anyway, don't worry. That is our little boy. He's upset with something, probably something I did. Oh, I don't know what I could do to upset him. I dote on the bloody cat.
You are such a daddy cat.
Living well. I'm not as bad as my brother though. I don't like build a house that's wrapped around the cat, rather than the other way around.
I'm sure Loki would love that if that was the case.
I don't know. I think I'm about to run out of battery shortly.
I would say goodbye soon. Then.
I will be saying goodbye soon. You may have seen what I've done and said he hasn't done very much. Been doing about an hour's worth, but this is kind of the fine details stage, and so unfortunately it means I take a bit longer than usual to get it all sorted. But
It's just the way it goes, though.
It is the way it goes. There's not much you can do about it, really. Well, you can, but I don't. Anyway, so this has been my first little stream for today. I'll try and stream a bit more often, maybe, but maybe when I'm painting something a bit more exciting, where you can see some more effects of what's actually going on. When I don't have this little cough in my throat. Anyway, it's been very nice to sit here and chat with you all. Hopefully, some of you have seen this. Or if not, then thank you very much for tuning in, and keep on gaming.